On this Friday night,
these are not hoax devices.
Under arrest, the man police say mailed bombs to the opponents of the U.S. president. Why it's very clear he's a Donald Trump supporter.
We're trying to light the fire.
Family members of two high-profile murder victims push for answers, what they're offering in exchange for information, and what Toronto police say in response.
To be clear, we don't think there is a systemic problem.
Canadian telcos called to account after a CBC News investigation. What your service providers told your MPs. This is The National. Full of intolerance, emboldened by hateful rhetoric, details are emerging tonight about the man accused of mailing bombs to prominent Democratic figures in the United States. He is a registered Republican and a big fan of the U.S. president.
Yeah, we just took him into custody.
The suspect arrested in Florida this morning is Cesar Sayoc. He's been charged with 5 felony counts. That includes things like illegal mailing of explosives and threatening a former president. If convicted, he'd face up to 48 years in prison, but the danger for the public may not be over just yet.
Today's arrest doesn't mean we're all out of the woods. There may be other packages in transit now.
So just today, more suspicious packages were intercepted while en route to 3 more opponents of the U.S. president, making it a total of 14 prominent Democrats targeted so far by the bomb maker. So who is Cesar Sayoc? What did the president have to say about him today? For more on that, I'm joined by the CBC's Lindsay Duncombe in Washington. So Lindsay, what can you tell us about this man?
Well, Cesar Sayoc is 56 years old. He is from Florida, where he was arrested earlier today. And this is someone, Adrian, who has a long criminal history, previous convictions for fraud, for theft, for even bomb threats. In fact, back in 2002, Sayoc pleaded guilty after threatening a power company, saying he would blow the place up. Sayoc is also, as you mentioned, a very strong Trump supporter, and that was evident after his arrest today when police officials took his van, a place where he had reportedly been living, and on the outside of that van, Adrian, were images of the president and the phrase CNN sucks, something that is repeated at rallies. There's actually images of Sayoc at a rally in Florida where he has a sign saying CNN sucks, and his online presence is littered with references to Donald Trump, and it also attacks some of the same people who were targeted in these pipe bombs, including Joe Biden, including John Kerry. One of the people who knew him, a boss who worked at a restaurant with him, spoke earlier today. Here's what she had to say.
He knew that I was a very strong supporter, very strong lesbian, very proud of my sexuality. But more than once he told me that if he had complete autonomy, I would burn in hell with all the blacks and Jews and Hispanics and everybody else. It was just the white supremacists that were going to rule the world.
Wow. So I understand the president condemned political violence again today. Was he asked specifically about Sayoc, though?
He was. As he was on his way to a rally, he was asked if he knew that those images of Donald Trump's face were on the suspect's van. Here's what he said.
I did not. I did not see my face on the van. I don't know. I heard he was a person that preferred me over others, but I did not see that.
And it was very interesting to watch Donald Trump's rally as it unfolded not long ago, because again, the president said that he believes this is the time for the country to come together. And then he went on to blame the media for some of the divisions and the rhetoric that exists in this country. The response when he did that, Adrian, was that same chant, CNN sucks, the same chant that was on Sayoc's sign when he was at a rally not long ago.
Okay. Thanks, Lindsay. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe in Washington tonight. So you just heard from the owner of the restaurant where Sayoc worked. So here's a bit more from her now. She said that because of his vehicle, he was not allowed to make deliveries during the day.
I hired him to drive at night. I couldn't have him driving in the daytime. I had him driving at night. He parked the van around the corner. I never got any complaints from any of the customers. If I did, he would have been fired. As far as an employee, he was on time, he was cordial, he was articulate. I never had any problems with him. There was no theft. My customers liked him, but it was just his political views that scared me. Basically, he was a model employee.
So lots of talk today about the pro-Trump stickers on Sayoc's van. Let's take a closer look at some of those in more detail. And keep in mind, the ones we're going to show you all come from just one section on the passenger side of the van. The van itself is covered in them. The stickers seem to say two things: that Sayoc worshipped President Trump and had contempt for liberal politicians as well as the media, CNN in particular. In one image, Trump rides a tank into battle beside a bald eagle that's firing a machine gun. To the left, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and filmmaker Michael Moore, all with gun sights on them. Another is titled, "I Have a Dream," and appears to show liberals running as if they're being shot at. And this one seems pulled right from the 2016 presidential campaign, a swamp populated with a who's who of prominent Trump critics, apparently sinking into the slime. So clearly a lot going on in Sayoc's mind, some of it confusing, a lot of it extremely hostile. But what does it tell us? For some insight on that, I'm joined by Brian Levin, the director at the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University. Brian, thanks for helping us out. It really feels like a time of heightened political fury and violence, not just the pipe bombs, but of course that shooting at the Republican baseball practice. But does your research actually bear those feelings out?
Yes, it's a rising tide, but sometimes we have these overwhelming waves. Let me give you an example. November 2016 was the worst month for hate crime in 14 years, and the day after the election, there was a bomb plot to blow up a Muslim populated apartment complex, and that was the worst day for hate crime since 2003. So we've been seeing this go up in waves, then kind of go down a little bit, but the tide is rising, and among this most diversified threat matrix we've seen in decades, the far right here in the United States is the most ascendant.
Okay, so what makes it hard for law enforcement to get ahead of this?
That is a great question. And what we saw was this rising tide where groups were involved. And we saw that Unite the Right rally. Since then, we've seen fragmentation of both the organizations and their leadership, which means that a lot of these loose cherries, who would just be content to go to a rally or spout on the internet, might actually become operational. So these loners represent the biggest problem for law enforcement because it's hard to investigate a trail of one.
Okay, Brian Levin, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so just a reminder now of what Cesar Sayoc is facing for his alleged actions. Today he was charged with 5 federal crimes, 2 involving explosives, 2 involving threats, 1 involving assault. If convicted on all of them, he could get 48 years in a federal prison.
And let's take a look at what else we're working on tonight. Surrogate mothers cannot be paid for giving birth, but what they can be paid for isn't quite so straightforward. We'll look at why that could soon change.
And we've been telling you about some of the misleading tactics Canada's telecom companies have used to sell their products. Well, today, Bell and Rogers explained themselves on Parliament Hill.
First, though, the family of murdered billionaires Barry and Honey Sherman say they are frustrated, fed up, and taking matters into their own hands. They're offering a $10 million reward for information about the case. The Shermans were found dead in their Toronto mansion nearly a year ago. And as Ron Charles tells us, all this time later, no suspects, no arrests.
The lawyer for the Sherman family says they're offering the $10 million reward out of frustration at the apparent lack of progress in solving the murders last December of Barry and Honey Sherman.
Also to light the fire under the Toronto Police Service and to try to ensure that those investigative steps which either have not yet been completed, not to have been taken by this time, are completed.
In the early days after the murders, the family of the billionaire couple hired a team of retired police detectives and a former Ontario chief coroner to privately investigate the case.
Our parents never left anyone behind. They were taken from us.
The Shermans' 4 adult children have heaped criticism on the Toronto police force, accusing detectives of initially treating the deaths as a murder-suicide and bungling the subsequent double murder investigation. The family's private team says police failed to check all possible entrances to the house, collect all possible evidence, and take fingerprints from people who had routine access to the house.
We know there were other people in the crime scene, such as housekeepers and cleaners. We've spoken to these people, and some of them have not been fingerprinted.
This investigation has been done to a very high level of professionalism and high level of expertise.
Toronto's police chief defended his investigators and welcomed the reward, at least in theory.
We know that historically that rewards don't necessarily help when it comes to concluding cases, but this is an opportunity that may offer great assistance. It certainly will put the investigation back in light again.
The Sherman family has even set up a staffed tip line, hoping that someone, somewhere, will be able to shed some light on what happened in this house 10 months ago. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
And we also have the CBC's John Lancaster joining us right now because, John, you've been tracking this murder investigation for months now, and we learned more today about the moment the Shermans were found.
Yeah, one of the people inside that house was a realtor, and he was there to show the house to a couple of clients. Now, he doesn't want to be his name out there because the killers haven't been caught, so we agreed to protect him in that regard. He describes the tour was almost over with his clients. They head down to the basement, look through this glass door leading into the pool area, and there are what appear to be 2 bodies. He doesn't believe, or he refuses to believe that they could be real bodies. He described it to me as thinking it was some kind of leftover Halloween prank from 6 weeks earlier when it was Halloween.
Wow.
He said to me, he thought, what kind of rich people are these people that would leave something like this as some kind of sick joke? He refused to believe what he saw, and so did his clients, was real. Given there were other staff in the house working, no one expected to see dead bodies in the house.
Right. So they have this jarring experience. They leave thinking that it couldn't possibly have been bodies. And yet, I mean, after the fact, we know that they were witnesses to this gruesome scene. I mean, so what happens next?
And what's even stranger about that, Andrew, is that 2 days later, he's on the internet reading the news, and he sees the Shermans have been murdered in the house he was at, in the location he was at. And he realizes what they had seen was real. He says it wasn't until about a week or 2 later, though, that police actually reached out to him to get a statement from him, even though he'd been there when the bodies were discovered. He said he went in there and talked to police. He handed over the shoes that they wanted, that he'd wore there. And he said police have since followed up, asking for his fingerprints, but haven't actually followed through yet.
Okay. John Lancaster, lots to follow up on. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Let's turn to another ongoing Canadian investigation. This country's 2 biggest telecommunications companies are defending the way they and their employees do business. Both Bell and Rogers spoke today at public hearings looking into misleading sales practices. And as Catherine Cullen tells us, it all started with a CBC News investigation.
One complaint is one complaint too many.
There was certainly some contrition from Rogers and Bell at these hearings. The thing is, this is about much, much more than one complaint.
I said to him, how many other senior citizens are you guys doing this to?
It's just been a nonstop nightmare for me.
The 5-day hearings were prompted by what CBC's Go Public uncovered about misleading and aggressive sales tactics.
Now this price is an ongoing price making you forever.
I was just in shock because I was guaranteed a price of $100 a month for the next, 24 months.
Other telecoms have been quick to blame the biggest companies.
There is a problem with certain providers, the largest providers.
But while Bell and Rogers expressed regret for some situations, they also defended the way they do business.
In some instances, we had absolutely failed those customers badly. In other instances, you could see the misunderstanding that occurred. And in some instances, we actually do not think that it actually was a well-founded complaint.
Yes, we have 50,000 employees, and from time to time there is an employee that we'll need to deal with on that particular issue.
Both talked about the new measures they were taking to help out customers, but said there is not a larger problem.
We don't think there is a systemic problem.
If we had that rampant an issue, customers would not, want to come to Bell.
The companies have pushed back against the idea of a new industry sales code of conduct, saying there's no shortage of rules right now. But some consumer groups have argued that the companies are in denial and need new rules and oversight so that aggressive sales practices will stop. The CRTC will weigh in with its report by the end of February. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Okay, now to a story that is so incredibly personal to so many in this country. Canadian couples seeking help to have a baby aren't allowed to hire a surrogate mother under the law, but what they are allowed to pay for isn't so clear. So today, Health Canada is laying down some ground rules. Christine Birak asks the question, what impact will those changes have?
It's a horse. It's a dog.
Two kids can be a handful. Lindsay Jarrett has 5. Her family is complete, but she's hoping to have one more.
That's the bird.
For a couple she's never met.
If my body is able, then why not give someone that gift?
It is. It's a big snake.
Legally, it has to be a gift. But until now, it wasn't clear what expenses relating to that gift could be paid for by the couple. If the cost crossed a line and started looking like payments, someone could go to jail. Now that there's a proposed list of covered expenses, Jared is relieved. The proposed regulations under the Assisted Human Reproduction Act cover surrogate mothers along with those donating eggs and sperm. Covered expenses may include travel, including transportation, parking, meals and accommodation, childcare, legal services and counseling, and any related insurance. Some bioethicists are applauding Health Canada for finally proposing these rules.
I think they've stayed true to the principle of the legislation, which is the non-commercialization of human reproduction.
Fertility lawyer Sherry Leviton hoped the legislation would move towards allowing for some payments.
What's distressing to me is that there's still a throwback.
The law is meant to protect donors from coercion and prevent people from selling reproductive abilities. Leviton feels there is room for responsible progress. But she isn't taking issue with the proposed regulations.
It's really helpful to be able to tell them exactly what they can reimburse for and what they can't reimburse for.
But others are being far more critical. Liberal MP Anthony Housefather has been pushing to end the ban on paid surrogacy. He says these clarifications do not go far enough, insisting it's time to take a harder look at the laws, which he calls ineffective and outdated. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
To another developing story we're watching tonight on The National, the fiancé of journalist Jamal Khashoggi has revealed she declined an invitation by Donald Trump to go to the United States.
Evet, Trump Amerika'ya davet ettiği sürecin ilk günlerinde.
In her first television interview, Hatice Cengiz says she thought the invitation was insincere and that the president's motivation was to win sympathy with the public. Khashoggi was killed in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul 3 weeks ago. He was organizing paperwork for the couple's planned marriage. Today, Turkey said it wants to extradite 18 Saudis arrested in Riyadh in connection with the killing.
And ahead tonight on The National, concrete is just about everywhere you look, but making it actually produces a lot of pollution. I'll take you inside a Canadian company that's trying to fix that.
And a little later, the new season of Making a Murderer is here. Is the true crime genre more entertainment than investigation? The Pop panel weighs in.
First, though, the fight for equal rights in horror movies.
Whoa, it's only women being murdered in this movie? No, we gotta change this. We have to make sure everybody gets murdered.
The big question going into today's session was whether having cameras in the Commons would alter the MPs' behavior, whether attacks would be moderated, whether there'd be fewer humorous asides. Joe Clark's opening question to the Prime Minister showed no lack of aggression.
Since the Prime Minister and the government's forecasts in its last 2 budgets have been dead wrong concerning economic growth and job creation, will the Prime Minister tell the House right now what specific programs his government will introduce this month to bring jobs to the more than 1 million Canadians who are out of work today because of the policies of this government?
But it was the Prime Minister who was really the first to take off the gloves.
This calls for more than just bland statements by the leader of the opposition.
And then later to some heckling by George Hees.
I don't know if the member of Prince Edward Hastings thinks he's on camera, but he's not.
That seemed to set the tone for Sinclair Stevens, Tory finance critic, and Jean Chrétien, the new finance minister.
But first, if I may, I would like to congratulate, if that's the proper expression, the minister on becoming the 4th Minister of Finance under the Prime Minister.
I would like to thank very sincerely the 6th critic of the Tories.
But it was John Diefenbaker who had the last laugh. He was referring to the Prime Minister's response to a suggestion that certain veteran MPs be admitted to the Privy Council.
Before the Prime Minister came here, and his lack of knowledge of the subject is therefore understandable.
For the moment, at least, the cameras seemed to have less of an effect than they might have. Everyone was clearly conscious that they were there, but there was less playing to them than might have been anticipated. That all may change, of course, as MPs get a sense of how they're coming across and decide whether or not they like the image they're conveying. Mark Phillips, CBC News, Ottawa.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him.
Well, there she is. That's Jamie Lee Curtis in the newest installment of the horror franchise Halloween. The role she first played 40 years ago is still slaying at the box office, raking in $100 million on its opening weekend. Not all women in horror have had the same survival skills as Curtis's character. The genre has often been accused of stereotyping women as sex objects or victims. But as Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains, as more women take to the director's chair, that's changing.
You got this.
It's horror trivia night at Rue Morgue magazine.
Who directed Satan's Rhapsody in 1917?
This group of women loves a scary movie, especially one with a strong female lead.
There's a movie that a lot of people hate, but I love it. It's Alien vs. Predator because Sanaa Lathan is the final girl in that movie, and I love her because she's my girl crush.
I'm going to say mine now because otherwise somebody else is going to take it. And it's Ripley from Alien.
They're not alone. According to industry analysts, Box Office Pro, slightly more women than men actually watch horror.
I think women have a very intimate relationship with fear, and seeing it depicted on screen can be very cathartic and comforting.
But for all the women watching horror, there have been very few women making it. Until recently.
People see people like me and Jen talking about horror movies and they're
Canadian twins Jen and Sylvia Soska are at the forefront.
Whoa, it's only women being murdered in this movie? No, we gotta change this. We have to make sure everybody gets murdered.
Now they're remaking Rabid, an early film of their idol David Cronenberg about a woman turned into a vampire by an experimental surgery. The basic storyline is the same, but it's told from a distinctly female perspective.
You know when you're walking down the street just as a woman minding your business and some guy starts following you and saying things to pick you up, and then when you ignore him because perhaps he's being rude and vulgar, then he says he's going to kill, murder, and rape you, etc., etc. That scene is in our movie, and that person gets what's coming to them, and it's so enjoyable. What are you doing here?
Horror films made by men tend to feature female nudity. In the female-made horror, male bodies are more often on display.
It's just a book.
Movies like The Babadook tackle taboo themes like women's ambivalence about motherhood.
Have you ever heard of body modification?
And Soska Sisters' own American Mary features a lot of female rage.
Stop, please.
One thing that hasn't changed, these films are still scary, often gory, and don't always portray women as morally pure.
Can we go now?
We're not through yet.
Mary Herron, veteran Canadian director of American Psycho, gave the Soska Sisters notes on their rough cut.
Well, I think horror is still a kind of last frontier, you know, and for women. And I think people would prefer if you know, a woman director, that you do films about women who are either heroic or victims, straightforwardly sympathetic. But I've always been fascinated by people who are a little more complicated and culpable.
The right to fright, as these women continue to fight for equality in front of the camera and behind the scenes. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
And up next on The National, the fix for a major source of pollution could actually be the pollution itself. You'll see how concrete is being made almost out of thin air. First, though, Ian and the Pop Panel.
Making a Murder is back on Netflix with a new season, but can true crime deliver the full truth? The Pop Panel goes in depth next.
Hey guys, I'm here with Ryan Gosling. Perfect timing. Ryan, you play Neil Armstrong. Tell us what it was like to step inside his shoes.
It was an incredible honor, but it was an even bigger responsibility. It's a truly remarkable story, and to be given that responsibility was a lot. But I got to work with his sons very closely, and his late ex-wife, and it was so much help, and it's an extraordinary story. I'm really honored to be a part of it.
I had a chance to speak with his sons, and they had nothing but high praise for your performance and your depiction. I'm sure that means a lot. But what is the audience going to learn about Neil Armstrong?
Well, if you're anything like me, Neil Armstrong was synonymous with the moon, but you knew very little about him. And this movie, I think, gives his life. It deserves the closer look that this film gives it. It's truly an extraordinary story, and what he and his family sacrificed to make this mission a success, as well as the 400,000 people who also made it a success. It's like an overwhelming story of sacrifice and hope.
And, there was some criticism about not showing the flag being planted, but what was your response to that?
I understand the frustration, but I think when people see the film, they'll see that the flag is represented on the moon and throughout the film.
So thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it. All right, guys, so that is Mr. Ryan Gosling. He stars in this film. It's a biopic about Neil Armstrong. We also heard from Claire Foy as well earlier, who plays the role of Janet Armstrong, Neil Armstrong's wife. And, this is a film that comes from director Damien Chazelle. He's the same young man who brought us Whiplash to the festival. He also brought us La La Land, which of course starred Mr. Ryan Gosling as well. And the two have made magic together. Of course, he won Best Director for that film. So many eyes are on First Man, how this film will portray a story that many of us know. We've learned through textbooks and we've learned through news articles. Many people witnessed that moment. But this story delves into the personal life as well of Neil Armstrong. It talks about loss that he's experienced in his life. It talks about, of course, the many failures that led up to the man walking on the moon. And so that is also depicted here. I also had a chance to speak with Damien Chazelle's partner, Justin, who has done the musical scores for all of his films. And again, they team up again together. They were school buddies, college buddies, and they say that now they're living their dream, making these movies in Hollywood, but nothing has changed. They're still making films the way that they used to, staying up late at night, working tirelessly. But let me remind you, Damien Chazelle's only 33 years old and has had remarkable success in Hollywood, and many people are saying that this one looks like it will be a big contender again.
I think Ryan does an excellent job. Definitely could see my dad in things that he did. Hats off to Ryan for her job.
I think the important thing is that Ryan really did his homework, as so did all the filmmakers and all the cast. They really studied this, and because they wanted to get it right, and I think that shows in the film.
And you just heard from Neil Armstrong's sons about the depiction of their father in this film, and unfortunately their mother passed earlier this year. So for them, they said that it was just amazing to see what Ryan Gosling was able to do and to bring their father to life. But we'll be here. You can check us out on Instagram as well. We'll have more from the red carpet.
Making a Murderer is back, which means many of us are about to turn into criminal justice lawyers. For those of you who haven't binge-watched the show, it's just the latest in a whole slew of highly addictive true crime shows.
True crime is like porn in the sense that it just flows into whatever medium is out there. High, low, whatever.
Shows like Making a Murderer and Serial, The Jinx, The Keepers, they are addictive, but they also get people talking about the criminal justice system.
I'm Katie Underwood, freelance writer and editor.
I'm Donovan Bennett, host and staff writer for Sportsnet.
I'm Stephen Marsh, random Toronto freelancer. But these shows are entertainment, not just information, and it's a really dangerous part of the world right now that there's a huge number of people who just can't tell the difference.
As great as it is to get people engaged in the flaws of our criminal justice system, we do have to take these shows with a grain of salt.
Shouldn't our crimes be tried in impartial institutions rather than the court of public opinion?
So it turns out our entire pop panel has seen Making a Murderer, knows this genre of kind of long-form crime reporting. And Stephen, let's begin with you. What is it that you like about this genre?
Well, I think what I like is a bit weird. I mean, what I like is the human portrait and the portrait of the towns. You know, I love this genre. I binge watch all of them. And I just find it like, you know, the true crime stuff, who done it, did he do it or did he not do it? I mean, that keeps you watching, but they're really intimate portraits of you know, communities, and that's what I love about them.
So the thing is, the appeal of these programs is unquestionable. I guess the question is this a good thing or a bad thing? That so many people are so obsessed by these crime stories?
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think, you know, having the public be exposed to what goes on in the justice system can only really illuminate what does and make people more aware. I think it makes sense, having watched the series and, you know, seeing kind of the perversions of justice that I saw as a legal expert because I've watched it. I mean, I think I would be concerned as a matter of the public, a member of the public watching it. But I also think that it makes a lot of sense that people would be interested in it.
Now, you have a slightly different view about all the attention and whether that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not good for my internet consumption. The bills have been high.
Yeah.
But listen, I love it. I actually am guilty how much I love it. It is a bit of rubbernecking for me. But I do wonder, though, when you talk about seeing the criminal justice system, how much of it are we seeing?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's highlights. It's not actual real depiction. Law is painstakingly law, and there's a lot of detail. We're not getting all that detail because it's entertainment. There are editorial choices that need to be made, but I think we all think we're village lawyers and we understand these cases based off of binging in 1 or 2 nights.
I'm just starting to lose my patience with all shows that, you know, create this entertainment information confusion. This distortion is really unhealthy. And, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of people who watch a television show and then feel perfectly confident that they know what happened. I mean, that's how poor their consumption habits are of media.
But who's the onus on, though? Because I don't think Netflix is trying to pretend that they're the New York Times or the Washington Post or the CBC.
Yeah.
They're an entertainment property, right? And I think the onus should be on us to take everything with a grain of salt, to watch and then research and then ask more questions. I think we should do that with our news, never mind our entertainment.
Ideally.
Let me
ideally.
Let me give you an alternative view, though, because I've heard from too many lawyers here in Canada and judges who I've spoken to who are negative about even news coverage of what happens in the courts because they say it's so imperfect. You guys only cover certain kinds of cases. And my view is that you know, some good coverage is better than none. And when you have some good coverage, then that means you're opening the door to coverage that's not so good. So to your point, I think we have to hope that the public understands that Making a Murderer is not reality, but maybe, Stephen, it's a version of reality. And maybe it's closer to reality than let's say, Law and Order.
Look, you're a journalist, right? You come at but it's different when you come at it from the point of view of entertainment. If you're using entertainment to provide a lens on reality, you're providing reality television. And we know what the consequences are when reality television swallows the whole world, because we're living in it, right? Like, that's what Washington is right now. And that just seems super dangerous to me, even when the motives are good. even when the movies are unquestionably good.
Now, I'll come to you in one sec, but I should point out with one of the interesting things about Making a Murderer is the second season has now dropped, and they are making references in that second season to all the attention they got in the first season by various journalists. Take a look.
Making a murderer.
Making a murderer.
Making a murderer. Making a murderer.
Okay, so maybe there's a little conflict of
Why do we
interest
pick
there.
that clip? The enunciation of making was outstanding.
Yeah, so Donovan lives in the world of sports, and so let's watch that again with a little bit of slow motion.
Making a murderer.
Making a murderer.
Making a murderer. Making.
I did not know I was going to be in it, and I was thrilled. I was sitting there at Saturday in my condo and tweeting to friends, "I'm on Making a Murderer." So, putting that aside, there are one of the things. There's almost a new genre of these multi-episode podcasts or crime shows. Which is your favorite?
Oh man, I really enjoyed Making a Murderer. I would recommend people not binge watch the entire thing. All 8 to 10
Which
or
you
however
did with the first season.
I did on a Sunday. It was probably the most depressing Sunday of my entire life. Yeah, I think I would definitely recommend it. I also followed Serial, which was great. And Serial is also kind of the thing that kicked off the true crime podcast fad. So I really loved it. I think Sarah Koenig did a great job, or as good a job as she possibly could have, given that it was one person telling the story.
And in both of those cases, Serial and Making a Murderer, it did motivate people, not just to get interested, but to demand more accountability. And sometimes it went over the line, as we saw at the beginning of the first episode of the second season of Making a Murderer, the one I'm in. They talk about how there were death threats against the prosecutors, who I think did a lousy job based on what I saw, but obviously didn't justify death threats. Before we move on to our next topic, of this genre, what do you recommend?
Oh, The Jinx. That would be my top one.
Which was on HBO.
Which was on HBO. I mean, I just think that's incredible.
Yeah.
But Making a Murderer is also excellent. Serial. I mean, how can you not recommend Serial? It's so unbelievable.
First season of Serial.
First season of Serial.
Not so much.
I didn't actually listen to the second season.
Which is true of a lot of people. They loved the first one, didn't even listen to the second one.
Yeah, I mean, this is like asking me to choose between my children, right? You got the Keepers, you got the Jinx, you got the Staircase, you got Mommy, Dad, and Dearest.
You watch a lot of TV.
I do, yeah. As I said, I'm ashamed about how much of this genre that I consume. I may need an intervention.
All right, well, let's change topics now, and we are going to talk about a record in pop music that has been held since 1964 by one of the most innovative and arguably most creative groups of all time, the Beatles, broken by Drake because of this song. So with that song, Drake has the most top 10 singles on Billboard's Hot 100 in a single year, the most since the Beatles in 1964. We're going to put the list up of some of those hits by both the Beatles and Drake to give people a sense of how generations have changed. Let's talk about, I mean, this is, you think about Elton John, Prince, Michael Jackson, Justin Bieber, Madonna. None of those people came close to this Beatles record. It was a guy from this town, from Toronto. What's the appeal of Drake?
I mean, I think Drake's always had an eye to mass appeal, and he's always had an eye to being as relatable as possible. So even from his earliest videos, you know, he shot one in a Shoppers Drug Mart. He talked about loving his mom, wearing fairly geriatric sweaters. So, like, that's going to state a specific center of the marketplace. But even looking towards his more recent videos, if you look at Hotline Bling, it's like someone engineered that to be cut up into GIFs. Yeah. And there's also a huge dance craze around the song In My Feelings. So I think he's just known how to play both sides of the market really well and been cognizant of that for as long as he's been out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The appeal of Drake?
Well, he's a meme artist, really, more than a musician. Like, he makes memes. He makes huge social media events that transcend music and then lift his music to this incredible place. I mean, there was one point where he had 24 songs in the Billboard 100. So that means he's a quarter of popular music for a moment. It's totally absurd. But it is also a difference in the way these things are tracked, right? Like, it's
so streaming now, for example.
Yeah. Like, it's and don't get me wrong, it's incredibly impressive nonetheless. But like, it's sort of like the difference between a piece going viral on Facebook and everyone going out and buying a novel. Right, that's the Beatles. Yeah. It's just a different.
That is a great analogy, Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a cultural curator, right?
Yeah.
He's a tastemaker, and to your point about the social media, when an album comes out, you know that a bunch of captions on Instagram are going to be his lyrics, but even more so than that, I think he, to use a sports term, has figured out the analytics and that, when 1,500 streams equal an album sale, I want to get on as many Spotify playlists as possible. And based on being from this place, in Canada, very multicultural, his music incorporates not just hip-hop and R&B, but grime from the UK, Afropop. We saw Latin influence, dance hall. He's able to use the melting pot that is this country to influence his music, which gets him on a lot of playlists, gets him a lot of streams.
Wow, I feel like I've learned more about his appeal from the three of you than I understood, certainly before we did this panel. 20 seconds each to give me your pick. That's something that people watching should be thinking about consuming.
Yeah, well, we've already heard I consume too much television. I'll give you something else. BuzzFeed has a show with Netflix. It's called Follow This. It takes a look at their newsroom and how they cover stories about the internet specifically and the craze around the internet. It's a really good, tight, kind of 12 to 18-minute watch.
Perfect.
New Halloween movie, totally amazing. Grandma revenge fantasy. There's not nearly enough of this.
A what?
It's a grandmother revenge fantasy. You have to see it.
I don't want to go any deeper.
It's brilliant.
Okay.
I would say the show is sponsored by Netflix now, but we're our own network. I really enjoyed Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It's a new Netflix series. It's kind of a foodie travelogue, and it does away with a lot of the food snobbery that's sort of endemic in that genre, and it's just a lot of very nice stylized shots of cheeses.
All right, they might.
So what's not to like?
Other than episode 1 of season 2 of Making a Murderer. My wife, every time I talk to her on the phone, she's in Vancouver, I'm in Toronto, she says, The Rookie with Nathan Fillion. Oh, yeah. She loves that show. She says it's worth watching. I'm not sure what the appeal is.
Is it different than Rookie Blue?
Apparently much different. So,
oh, wow.
I defer to her. It's a good idea.
Not to be CBC PR, but should you not be pumping your own true crime series coming out?
Thank you very much. That's a podcast we have coming up in November, but we have more time to talk about that. But thank you, Donovan.
Looking forward to it.
Always thinking, huh? Okay, up next on The National, the cement industry is one of the world's big carbon dioxide emitting industries, but a Canadian company is trying to change that by using the pollution itself to fix the problem.
So the CO2 from that tank outside comes in here?
Yeah, so it comes in through a pipe, directly into the mixer, mixes with the fresh concrete, reacts right away.
The Arrow 1, Canada's first supersonic fighter plane, is ready to fly after 5 years of work and planning by 5,000 people at Avro of Canada near Toronto. Now, $200 million and 17,000 blueprints later, the plane taxis out for flight testing with Chief Test Pilot Jan Zurakowski at the controls.
7.8 for takeoff instruction.
Roger, thank you.
Runway 23, no delay.
Roger.
513-539, clear to position and hold 32.
The two chase planes are off first, one a CF-100 and the other a Sabre. The CF-100 is piloted by a wartime squadron mate of Jan Zurakowski, Spud Patoki. On the ground, all is tense and ready. In the cockpit, the pilot eases the throttles forward and the Arrow starts down the runway. The plane roars off the ground on her maiden flight. The Arrow rockets skyward, pushed by American-made turbines that generate twice the power of the Queen Mary's engines.
The elevator is about 3 degrees or 4 degrees up as far as I can see from here. Ailerons are nice and fresh.
The Arrow type of fighter will later be equipped with Canadian Iroquois jet engines, the most powerful in the world when they're available. The marriage between this radically new design in planes and the Iroquois engine is expected to make the Arrow one of the world's fastest operational aircraft, with speeds of twice that of sound.
From spot. The rudder is whipping about, I should say, about an inch.
The Arrow has 38,000 parts and a special refrigeration plant to keep the pilot from frying at supersonic speeds.
The engines are becoming quite nicely. They are occasionally giving you a bit of a black puff of smoke coming out of the can, but otherwise I can see there is no problem. Alarm now. The probe here seems to be quite normal here. No problem.
The Arrow checks out in its first airborne test, but only a small fraction of the plane's potential has been tested. Over many months to come, the plane will ease up to and over the sound barrier and further beyond with the mighty Iroquois turbine. Though the Arrow is a fighter, it has been designed with a bomb bay that will hold a nuclear warhead weapon. It also has reserve fuel tanks that will give a long range on a combat mission. How long is not yet specified. A new weapon of defense has been added to the arsenal of the Western world.
I want to begin with 2 words. I'm sorry.
Well, this week's on-air apology from Megyn Kelly was not enough to save her show. NBC has canceled Megyn Kelly Today. The host, who is paid $23 million US a year, by the way, sparked outrage earlier this week when she defended the use of blackface during a segment about Halloween costumes. And Brazil's media has dubbed this man right there the Trump of the tropics, and he is tipped to win the country's presidency. Jair Bolsonaro is a former army captain who has won major support by promising to jail corrupt lawmakers and make it easier for the police to shoot drug traffickers. But many have also been angered by his misogynist and racist comments throughout the deeply divisive campaign. Voters go to the polls on Sunday.
Well, few things have transformed human civilization like concrete. By far, the most abundant man-made material on the planet. It is strong, durable, fire-resistant, and doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance. But there's a huge environmental cost in creating concrete. Staggering amounts of carbon dioxide, one of the main greenhouse gases in this world. So, a Canadian company has devised a fix to make concrete almost out of thin air, in a way. Imagine that same gas, carbon dioxide, being used to make strong and safe concrete blocks. Here's a closer look. The modern world is literally built out of concrete. It's everywhere.
Concrete is one of the most widely used building materials in the world.
You can look at a building, you can look at a curb, you can look at a bridge, you can look at sculptures, it's just endless. Everything uses concrete.
But the concrete industry has a problem. Making it pollutes a lot. 7% of the world's CO2 emissions link back to a single ingredient in concrete.
So if we could reduce that by any amount, it would be a success.
If you can get that number down, that's a game changer.
Yes, absolutely.
So here's how you make concrete. You need 3 things: water, random bits like sand and gravel, and cement, which is the glue that binds it all together. But making a kilogram of cement releases about half a kilogram of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So the team at a company called Carbon Cure has devised a clever way of turning CO2 into something useful. Okay, so Josh, what do we have in this tank?
In this tank, we have liquid carbon dioxide.
Right now, they're shipping it in direct from industrial polluters, long before it ever reaches Earth's atmosphere. It's bottled up and prepped for the mixer.
So this is it. Yeah, this is the mixer.
mixer.
So the CO2 from that tank outside comes in here?
Yeah, so it comes in through a pipe, directly into the mixer, mixes with the fresh concrete, reacts right away.
Yes, you heard right. They're mixing CO2 back into the concrete, sequestering it forever.
It starts reacting with the cement immediately and is permanently encapsulated in the concrete.
So even if the concrete breaks, say a building is demolished, the CO2 never escapes because it hardens. It becomes a solid. It's even strong enough to take the place of some of that expensive, polluting cement. And using less cement saves money and pays for the carbon dioxide. It actually ends up being cost neutral?
Yes, you're getting the exact same quality concrete, only greener.
It is on a larger scale this idea starts to show real promise, because trapping concrete block by block is one thing, but by the hundreds or thousands of blocks? This plant can produce tens of thousands in a single day. Its entire product line, every single block it makes, is injected with carbon dioxide. And there are 100 plants just like this one across Canada and the US using the very same technology. But even that is just a drop in the bucket. If there are skeptics in the concrete industry, it's because of how sensitive the whole process is. I mean, just consider this. These concrete blocks are fresh out of the mold. The mixture has to be just right. They're laser measured to make sure they're right to spec. And if anything is off, these blocks come right off and they're junk.
This is actually the area where we drilled cores out to send off to the lab for testing.
Luke Johnson works for Tridel, a major developer based in Toronto.
I needed to know exactly what it is, what it does it affect my timelines, does it affect my budget, and most importantly, one of our core values, does it affect our quality?
On this downtown site, 14 stories will ride on the strength of his concrete. The walls, your conventional run-of-the-mill stuff, but the big test, the floor, right under our feet.
And how did it do?
It performed well, the order went well.
Structurally, durability?
Structurally, all the testing, everything met the specified criteria.
And not far away, a project with carbon cure concrete in mind from the very start. This is going to be a hospital in Vaughan, Ontario.
This particular project is using in excess of 500,000 individual blocks.
It's an example of how a nod to the environment can pay off big. The promise of a green building was key to getting this project off the ground.
And how much carbon dioxide are you able to trap?
So this particular project is just under 14,000 pounds of CO2, essentially, that's captured in there. So to put that into more relatable terms, it'd be the equivalent of about 146 tree seedlings grown over about 10 years.
That's trapped in that building
yeah.
once it's done.
Right.
Across all of its projects, Carbon Cure estimates it's kept millions of kilograms of CO2 from escaping into the atmosphere. The challenge now is getting the word out and convincing companies it can pay to go green. Doing that would go a long way in turning one of the world's most prolific greenhouse gases into simple building blocks.
It's like the definition of a fix. So it's really interesting. I'd imagine it means that companies will be able to, pull back on how much cement they end up using. Is it your sense that they're already pulling back?
Right. So that's a really good question, and I had the same one. But the short answer, are they using less cement? No, not yet. Both companies you just saw are still unsure. They want to see how this stuff performs over a really long period of time, like years, before they start reducing cement bit by bit, which, it's fair considering you don't want to roll the dice with a 20-story building. So the concrete they're using now is stronger because it's been reinforced with carbon dioxide, but it's nowhere near as green as it could be. Not yet, anyway.
Okay, untapped potential. We'll be right back with The Moment.
I didn't want to tour until I had a lot of new songs because we've really been touring since '76 pretty regular until '83 when we stopped. And at that point, I was a little disillusioned with it in that I just felt that it wasn't the place to grow creatively because you really just go out and play the most popular songs to the great audiences, and it was great fun, but I thought that we needed a little woodshed time to just grow creatively, and so hopefully that worked.
It did work. The album is called Southern Accents. Tom Petty spent 2 years making this anthem to his Southern roots, and the results seem to be pleasing everyone. The fans, the critics, the heartbreakers, and especially Petty himself.
Yeah, it let more than the last album, which was just sort of a collection of songs. It wasn't really a concept. This one had more of a conceptual, or a theme, really. I don't think it was a story. It just had a theme, a thread running through it. And it just worked out that way. It's hard to think about those things while you're doing them. You don't really think about them. But yeah, I think it has, something to say. Yeah.
Wanna make it good again. Baby, I wanna make it better.
Mostly the songs say Petty and the Heartbreakers aren't ashamed of their Florida background, even though home is California now. Many critics have interpreted the songs to be Petty's rediscovery of his Southern musical roots.
I never know what they mean by that, by my musical roots. I think that comes about because we're from the South. We all grew up there, lived a good 20 years there. I think once you grow up in the South like that, you really never beat it out of you, I mean, you may lose your accent, but we were back there not long ago, and you start talking like this immediately when you get back there.
Don't feel you anymore. You dark man blue. Whatever you're looking for. Hey! Don't come around here no more.
Southern Accents proved to be more than just a creative risk for Petty. In frustration over the mixing of one of the cuts, he knocked his left hand against the wall. Several bones were broken. Doctors prepared him for the possibility of never playing guitar again. But the hand has healed well. So has Petty's sense of humor.
The hand is doing pretty well, it's fine for guitar playing and not very good for carrying suitcases,
Lucky you.
Lucky me, yeah, it gets me out of a lot of work. My baseball career is over, I think, but I can play guitar again.
Well, it is an honor usually reserved for U.S. presidents, being laid to rest in Washington's National Cathedral. But today, it was Matthew Shepard's turn, 20 years later, after he was murdered for being gay. Now, the 21-year-old university student was robbed, beaten, and tied to a fence in Wyoming. His brutal killing became a rallying cry for LGBTQ rights. And for years, his parents kept his ashes in their home until now. And that is our moment.
It's so important that we now have a home for Matt, a home that others can visit, a home that is safe from haters, a home that he loved dearly. Matt was blind, just like this beautiful house of worship. He did not see skin color, he did not see religion, he did not see sexual orientation. All he saw was a chance to have another friend.
So I have three things I want to say to Matt. Gently rest in this place. You are safe now. Oh yeah, and Matt, welcome home. Amen.
It's amazing. This is the funeral Matthew Shepard didn't get to have 20 years ago. There were so many homophobic protesters at the funeral. His dad had to wear a bulletproof vest. I remember this so clearly, but I heard something today I'd never heard before, that the first police officer on the scene found a deer lying beside Matthew's body, and that when she approached, the deer locked eyes with her before it walked away, and it has haunted her ever since.
Wow. And this theme of being home kept coming up. And that place, the Washington National Cathedral, is very much thought of as the spiritual home of the nation. And so hopefully today did provide some closure to a nation that went numb all those years ago. That is the National for this October 26th. Have a good night.
Good night.